What would you do if, at 95 years old, your own son struck you across the face, shattered your bones, and forced you out of your home to survive on the streets for 6 months? That is precisely what happened to Eleanor Hayes. She survived by searching through trash bins for food. She slept on cold pavement under the open sky. Her body wasted away until her bones showed through her skin. And all the while, her son, the child she had raised, nurtured, and sacrificed everything for, slept comfortably in her bed, inside her home, surrounded by everything that had once belonged to her, until one man saw her lying collapsed on a footpath and refused to walk away. By the time Eleanor appeared in my courtroom, I had already studied the file, the medical records, the photographs of her injuries, the reports detailing 6 months of homelessness. After 40 years on the bench, I believed I had seen everything, that nothing could unsettle me anymore. I was mistaken, and when her son, Raymond, stood before me, met my gaze, and attempted to intimidate me in my own courtroom, I made certain he understood exactly what that choice would cost him. I am Judge Judy Schindler. And what unfolded that day is something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Before I tell you what happened inside that courtroom, you need to understand who Eleanor Hayes truly was. She was 95 years old, born in 1929. She grew up during the hardship of the Great Depression, when every coin mattered and survival was never guaranteed. At 22, she married her husband, Thomas, and together they built a life from nothing, just determination, resilience, and love. For nearly 6 decades, they worked side by side. Thomas passed away 14 months before this case came before me. 58 years of marriage ended quietly in a hospital room. Eleanor held his hand until his final breath. Then she returned home alone, made herself tea, and sat in the kitchen they had shared for decades, figuring out how to go on. Because that was Eleanor Hayes, she did not crumble. She did not seek sympathy. She simply endured, with the same quiet strength that had defined her entire life. Raymond was her only child. She gave him everything: education, opportunities, forgiveness, second chances. When others doubted him, she defended him. When he faltered, she supported him quietly. When his gambling spiraled out of control, she shielded him from consequences, convincing herself it was temporary. She loved him with the kind of love only a mother can give, especially to a child who makes that love difficult. But Raymond saw that love as weakness. He had a gambling addiction. That is not an excuse, but it explains how things unraveled to the point where Eleanor lay helpless on her kitchen floor with a fractured hip, while her sons walked away. By the time Thomas died, Raymond had already lost everything: his savings, his home, his financial stability. The only thing left of value was the family house, the home Thomas had spent his life paying for. The home where Eleanor still lived. Raymond wanted to sell it. Eleanor refused. She knew exactly what would happen to that money. She had seen him lose everything before. She would not allow the last piece of her husband's legacy to vanish across a gambling table. So Raymond chose force. One Sunday evening, he arrived with property transfer papers and demanded her signature. She calmly refused. And something inside him broke. He struck her across the face with such force that she fell. The fall fractured her hip. She lay there, calling his name, unable to move. He stood over her and told her the house was no longer hers, told her to leave. That same night, he changed the locks. The next morning, a neighbor helped her up. But fear kept them from intervening further. Eleanor, ashamed and heartbroken, said nothing. With nowhere to go, she went to the streets, paused for a moment, and truly imagined what followed. A 95-year-old woman, a fractured hip, bruised, abandoned, and alone. She slept on sidewalks. She scavenged for food. Her injury never healed because she never received proper treatment. Within weeks, her body deteriorated. Her clothes fell apart. The woman who had built a home and a family became invisible to the world. No one stopped, no one asked, except one small, stray dog. He began following her during the 3rd week, thin, quiet, watchful. She named him Harold after her late husband. Every night he lay beside her, offering the only warmth she had for 6 months. Meanwhile, Raymond lived in her house, drinking, gambling, sinking deeper into debt. Eleanor was no longer a concern, just a problem he had removed, until the morning her body gave out. On a cold Thursday, she collapsed on a busy sidewalk and did not rise. People gathered. Most hesitated. But one man looked twice. His name was George Patton, a close friend of Thomas Hayes for over 30 years. Though he hadn't seen Eleanor in over a year, he recognized her. Despite everything, he didn't hesitate. He called an ambulance. He stayed with her. He paid for her treatment, and he sat by her bedside until she regained consciousness. When she opened her eyes and saw him, she wept silently for a long time. George waited. When she finally spoke, she told him everything. The papers, the refusal, the assault, the eviction, the 6 months on the street, even Harold. George listened without interruption. Then he stood, adjusted his jacket, and said simply, "We're fixing this." That same day he filed charges: elder abuse, illegal eviction, neglect. The evidence was undeniable. Within 48 hours, Raymond was found in a bar, laughing with friends, drink in hand. He was arrested immediately. 3 days later, the case came to my courtroom. My clerk, Christina, who has worked with me for 23 years, handed me the file that morning. I saw her expression before I read a word. I reviewed the reports: fractured hip, malnutrition, dehydration, facial trauma. I read the witness statements. I saw the photographs. I set the file down. Then, I picked it up again and read the defendant's name: Raymond Hayes. I sat there for a full minute before standing, because some cases don't just provoke anger, they leave something heavier. At 9 a.m., I took the bench. Eleanor sat in the third row, small, composed, her white hair neatly arranged. Her posture was straight despite her injury. She looked neither angry nor broken. She looked ready. Then Raymond entered. The contrast was stark. Expensive suit, confident stride, high-powered lawyers beside him. He didn't glance at his mother. She watched him pass. He never turned. When asked for his plea, he declared himself not guilty, calling it a private family matter. Then he tried to intimidate the court, hinting at powerful connections, suggesting discretion. I asked him directly if he was threatening the court. He deflected. I had seen men like him before. I instructed the prosecutor to present everything. What followed was one of the most devastating hours I have ever presided over. Medical experts detailed her injuries. A social worker described her condition on the streets. George testified, recounting the moment he found her. He wept openly. Raymond sat unmoved. Not once did I see remorse. When the testimony ended, I delivered my verdict: guilty on all counts, 3 years in jail, a $20,000 fine, immediate restoration of all property rights to Eleanor. No contact unless she initiated it. The ruling was final. Raymond's composure collapsed instantly. He panicked, pleaded, turned to his lawyers, who had nothing left to offer. Then he turned to his mother. "Mom, please. I'm sorry. Don't let them take me." For the first time he saw her, Eleanor looked at him, calm, steady. And she spoke. She reminded him of everything she had given, everything she had endured, and everything he had taken. Her voice never rose. Then she said, "You are not my son anymore, and I am not your mother." The courtroom held its breath. She had forgiven him, but she would not give him her life again. Raymond was taken away. He looked back once. She did not. Her home was returned to her before she left the building. George drove her back. Harold was in her arms. Weeks later, I learned she had repainted her kitchen yellow, her favorite color, fresh flowers on the table. Her husband's photograph restored above the fireplace. She was home. Raymond served his sentence. The house was never his. Eleanor Hayes, 95 years old, lived the rest of her life with dignity intact. After 40 years on the bench, when people ask me what justice truly looks like, I think of Eleanor. I think of a woman who chose herself. I think of a small dog named Harold. I think of a yellow kitchen, and I remember exactly why I do this.